Rachel Herrera, back with another episode of Data Detective. And today we're hopefully going to be having a little bit of fun with data. I am a Swiftie. That's I live with it every day. And I saw somebody playing with their Spotify data because you can actually request it and download it. So we're going to do that today. And I'm going to walk you guys through how I grabbed the data, how I organized it in Snowflake. I'm even going to talk a little bit about Snowflake's AI Cortex function, which I use to kind of help decorate the data. And then we're going to build some stuff in Kubit just to kind of show you the full work through. So not really teaching anything today so much as just having some fun with data and showing you some of the cool stuff that you can do when you're working in a warehouse native architecture. So with that, let's dive in. When I got this file from Spotify, basically what I get is a bunch of different text files like this, which are JSON objects, one right after the other. And each JSON object is representing me playing a song or listening to a podcast. I don't listen to a ton of audiobooks on Spotify, so it's really just songs and podcasts. And within each of these, you can see all the different fields that become available. So pretty cool. Let's talk about how to get it organized in Snowflake. So if we take a look at our Snowflake environment here, basically what I did is I created a simple table, and I'm calling it Spotify Plays. Got all of my fields here, and then when I insert it, I am taking all of the different files of JSON, I am flattening it into single rows, and then just simply quickly formatting it into the different rows of data. So really straightforward, nothing super fancy here. What's cool though is while this data is interesting, it's going to show me things like, did I listen to the song on shuffle? Did I skip the song? Also, most importantly, how many milliseconds of time did I spend listening to the thing? What it's missing is maybe like categories or classifications. So I would love to know like, what's my favorite genre, for example? Genre is not in here for any of this music. So how can I kind of solve for that? Well, if I go into my second SQL workbook here, basically I felt like I would be able to use Cortex to kind of help me classify this information. So I did some playing around with the data to make sure it looked as I expected. And then where it gets kind of fun is I created a temp genre table as like a reference for Cortex. So I basically grabbed a bunch of different genres of music, put it into this table as something that the AI can look at and take its cues from and figure out, okay, what values do we even want to populate here? Then I created my empty dim artist genre table where I'm going to have the artist name and then the classified objects of genres that come back from the AI, plus a few other things. So how did I classify this? This is kind of the fun part. So in the insert statement, so to actually get the data into this dim artist genre table, I pulled the distinct artist from my Spotify Plays table. So I have a discrete list of artists that I only have to pull one time. And then I got a list of genres from this column that I'm creating down here. So in order to create the JSON object or array of genres per artist, I said, okay, select the artist here from the table that I created above, the distinct artist table. And then use the Snowflake's Cortex AI classify command or function. Look at the artists and then also look at the genres that are from my genre temp table. Basically, here's how you structure the instructions that you give this particular AI job in Snowflake. So first I need to describe the task. So basically, what am I asking it to do? I want it to classify the music artist into the closest music genre. And then the output mode, I want it to be multi. So I don't want it to pick just one. I want it to pick all the ones that it feels are most relevant to the artist. And then I'm going to give it a few examples. So this is a good way for you to make sure that the output is going to be what you expect. So I ask it to parse this JSON, and then I just put this sample JSON of a few artists. So, Taylor Swift is the input, and the labels or the genres that are on the other side of that should be something like pop and country, whereas Metallica is metal. So again, this is just a guidance for the AI. And then we're going to call that genre object. So the object array of the different genres. Then I am going to take the first value of that array, so the index of 0, and I'm going to call that the primary genre. And then I'm going to take the full array and call it all genres. So the big difference here is the genres object is an actual JSON object. The all genres is just simply an array. So it doesn't have that key value pair. And then I'm going to cross join the two to kind of make it as simple as possible. I'm only doing this once, so I don't really need to make this super sophisticated, like a slowly changing dimension or anything like that. This is just for fun. And then I'm going to grant proper permissions on the user so that I can give it access to Kubit. So this was kind of the fun bit of lightweight data prep that I needed to do to get more context into my data set. So now that we've modeled and prepared our data, we have our two tables. Going into Kubit, let's take a look at our data modeler so you can kind of see how we modeled this up. I have my Spotify plays table that I created from the JSON as my primary fact table. I've got a couple of fields here. I'm not mapping all of them. For example, I don't need the IP address. All of this data is just me, so that's not really that important. The audiobook stuff, I don't listen to audiobooks, so I don't need this data. And then a few other things. Now, in order to make Kubit work, I had to assign it things like an event name, which in this case, I actually created a kind of a simple SQL statement right here, because the data set doesn't actually have an event column, if you will. So if I click into this, I can show you, basically I'm saying when the master metadata track name is null, so when there is no song title, we're going to call the event played podcast, because if it's not a song, I'm listening to a podcast. Else played song. So there's only two events in this data set, played podcast, played song. So that's the easy part. I have my timestamp. I also derived a date out of my timestamp using simple SQL as well. And then I also just created a fake user ID of Rachel Herrera because I'm the only user in this data set. I also created another subject for the artist name. So in case maybe I want to count unique artists as opposed to total songs or anything like that, it makes it a lot easier in Kubit. Then I added my dimension table here, pulling back my genres, and then just simply joining it on artist name because that's how these two tables relate to one another. So what does that get me? Well, now I get to come in and actually play with this data. And together we're going to create maybe like 2 or 3 fun reports to answer the big question of how obsessed am I with Taylor Swift, which, by the way, congratulations to Taylor and Travis on their engagement. It is like our own royal wedding in the US, and I'm so excited. So we all know that she's amazing, but how much does Rachel actually enjoy listening to her music? Let's find out. So the first thing I thought I would ask myself here is, when did the obsession start? You know, I was not a girl who followed her through my adolescence. So let's start there. And let's look at number of times I played a song, but we're actually going to sum it by, let's do the playtime in minutes. So I have a column that I created that just simply converts the milliseconds played to minutes. Pretty easy. And then I'm going to add a filter here on the artist. And I'm going to say it needs to equal Taylor Swift. And because this is several years of data, I mean, I've been a Spotify customer now for probably 8 or 9 years. And because this is data coming from the warehouse, I kind of have full flexibility to go back as like 4 years, for example. And I don't want to see this daily because that would be a little crazy. So let's do monthly. Okay, so let's run that query. And I'm not dealing with a ton of data. I do not recommend running a 5-year or a 4-year query if you've got a lot of data. So, do as I do, not as I say. So we've got our report here. I'm going to look at it as a bar chart. And wow, very clearly there's something that happened in March, April of 2023 that catapulted me into the true Swiftie fan club. Because before that, I was listening to, 93 minutes, 142 minutes a month, which isn't terrible. But then getting into like these, it's like 1,500 minutes a month. So what might have happened right here? Well, I can tell you exactly what happened. I went to the Eras tour in Dallas. I believe it was at the end of April. And so I needed to get up on my Taylor Swift because, as you can see, these are rookie numbers to the left-hand side. So just for some fun, let's add in Kubit, we call them incidents, but it kind of helps like identify key moments of time. Let's add maybe an other, and let's call it Eras, if I can spell, Eras Tour in Dallas. To help people understand what might have happened right here. So now you can see that, okay, the Eras tour was in Dallas, very much coincides with my listening spiking. So let's go ahead and save this, and we're gonna add it to our dashboard. Now I can go in here and add it to my How Obsessed Am I with Taylor Swift dashboard and hit save. Now the other thing that I might wanna look at is we kind of know that it looks like 2023 is like roughly the time period that the obsession begins. What about albums? What are some of the albums that I listen to most frequently? So now maybe we can even add a breakdown here, looking at the song album of the artist name. And rather than the last 4 years, let's just go back maybe the last 3 or even maybe the last 2, because we know that 2023 was kind of when things took off. And instead of looking at this monthly, maybe let's just look at all time, just to see kind of in general of her, at this point, 12 or 11 albums. Oh, I picked the wrong thing. Let's make sure I picked the right thing. Album name. There we go. Of her 12 soon to be, or actually 11 soon to be 12 albums are my favorite. So we've got a total over the time period, which we can turn off. And then we can very obviously see that her newest album, The Tortured Poets Department, is my current favorite. It's also her longest, so I feel like that kind of skews the data here a little bit. It's got the most songs, so that just certainly helps it. And then we have Folklore, Midnights, 1989, Evermore. So clearly I am a newer age Taylor Swift fan as opposed to her older albums, later albums, which, that's something interesting about me now. So let's save this and add it to our dashboard as well. And I'm actually going to give it a nicer name. We're going to say, top TS albums. Great. So the other thing I could see is looking at a funnel. When I start listening to Taylor, how long do I listen to her before I listen to something else? Basically, how diverse is my musical taste? And I can build a funnel to understand that. So I can say, I played a song with the artist name equal to Taylor Swift. And then my conversion event, the thing I do next, would be to play another song. But in this case, the artist would not be Taylor Swift. And when I look at conversion, instead of looking at just conversion, I can also look at time to convert. And maybe I see over a single day, and maybe we look back, let's say like 15 days or so. How long does it typically take me to listen to Taylor and then to change and not listen to her? Oh, that is, that's so embarrassing. So, okay, according to this, 22 hours between listening to Taylor Swift to not listening to Taylor Swift. What we can understand from this is if I'm not going to be listening to Taylor, it won't happen quickly. It will happen like at the end of the day, apparently. And if I maybe change this, so let's look at like the last 30 days, I wonder if it's different. In the last month, has the average changed much? Okay. So maybe in the last 15 days, I just listened to like way more Taylor Swift than is necessary. But in the last 30, as you can see, it gets a little bit more reasonable. And like I listen to a song and then maybe I go on to something else. Now, the kind of funny thing about this funnel here is because I'm the only user, it's going to look at like my first conversion within that day. There are other things that I could do where maybe I could like add partitions like a listening session, but I don't think in the data set there's anything like that. So that's kind of one fun thing. I guess we can go ahead. Let's add it on our dashboard. And the other thing we may want to look at is, okay, we know, Rachel, you're obsessed with Taylor, but what other genres of music do you often listen to? So if you remember, we created our genre objects using Cortex. So I could say played song, count the number of played song events, and then break down by our genre information, which if you remember, we have our primary genre, which I think will be good enough in this case. Or we could look at the all genres, which is the array. So I could get a bunch of different objects. So maybe let's look at like in the last 30 days or so. And I think let's do all time. I don't care daily what my favorite genres are. Let's just kind of show you what this would look like. So when I get my results back, we can see that overwhelmingly I listen to a lot of pop. I think that's probably because Taylor Swift would be categorized as pop. But then my second most favorite is indie rock. So other artists like I think Kings of Leon, Noah Kahan, etc. kind of fall into that category, as well as alternative rock and rock. And then kind of a long tail of a bunch of other stuff. And if you scroll down to the table here, you can see some of the other genres that got picked up. Things like EDM, blues, soul, funk, etc. So that's how you could use some of this. We could even save this and continue to add it to our dashboard just to help kind of keep telling the story of what else maybe I might be listening to. Now we have a beautiful dashboard outlining how obsessed I am with Taylor Swift. Clearly it started in the late spring of 2023 at the Eras Tour in Dallas and has quickly deteriorated into a full-blown obsession, specifically the Tortured Poets department. If I'm listening to her, either I'm changing it on the same song or in the last 15 days, it takes me a full day before I listen to something else, if you guys remember that. And about 50-50 of the time, I listen to her on shuffle or straight through. So hopefully this was kind of a fun little exercise for everybody, seeing how to take data, put it in Snowflake, get it hooked up to Kubit, do some cool ETL using AI, and seeing some fun stuff about yourself. So this wasn't a normal episode. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Obviously, let us know if you have any thoughts or want to see something. But until then, have a good one, and thanks all.